So if you can hear me, please let me know, because I'm trying to.
Ah,
Can you hear me now?
can hear you
Can you
now.
hear me? Yes. Oh, sorry. I was like, yeah, every time when we're doing this, live, it puts you on the spot, and how
I
you're
know,
going to recover
completely.
from it is another thing. Yeah. Thank you so much, Dallas, for coming here today again. And I was just about reading your bio. So I am up to nutrition routine. Okay. So how you, bringing the awareness in ditching all nothing or nothing workouts and depleting diets, that part. And then even if they have been told that leaking, pelvic pain, core weakness, and constant aches are just a new normal for women, for motherhood especially, Dallas has previously owned a successful Queensland. Oh, yes, they are not. Oh my goodness, I'm reading all over the place. So, yeah, and you have owned a successful Queensland multivenue pregnancy fitness studio and is currently the founder of BodyFabulous Fitness, supporting women nationally and globally with a variety of in-person and virtual programs. That is amazing. You're not just reaching the national, but, the women all around the world. And that is amazing job. Yeah, thank you for coming here today, Dallas, and we truly appreciate for being here and for the second time.
Oh, thanks, Ange. And yes, there's always technical glitches, which makes it, even more fun.
Yes,
So that's
yes.
fine.
Well, yes. And it's so before we start our live, I just wanted to say this talk is all about educational and awareness purposes. And if you have incontinence of some sort, please go and reach out for the professional help. Or if you're doing, and we will talk about it. And then if you have more questions, specific question, doing incontinence during the your fitness, you can reach out to Dallas directly, or we have the Q&A session at the end. Please stay till the end, and we will do that. So yeah, I think we'll let's start. Hey.
Yeah.
So we will start with the first thing is how do we relate incontinence in fitness industry?
Yeah. Well, I guess the more common term is leaking. So
Yes.
it's involuntary action of, the bladder or the bowel. And I think for a very long time it's been taboo. A lot of women don't talk about it, regardless whether they're in fitness or not.
Mm.
And I think it's also been, women are just told to forget about it and to pad up and play on, and
Mm.
it's just a part of motherhood, or it's just something that happens if you have a baby. And that's actually not true. It does happen to women who have never had children, who
Mm.
may also be, still teenagers as well. So it affects a large part of the population, and it happens to men as well. So
Mm.
it's not something that should be ignored.
Mm. Yes, I have heard a few times the parents from school as well. Even the children has it. So yeah, being able to bring awareness in this important topic. That's why I wanted to bring the live again. Try to upload it. Try to so we can reach out more people. Um, Yes, yeah. So, hello everyone again. Yeah, thank you for joining here today. We have beautiful Dallas, who is the postnatal pelvic floor and exercise specialist. So here we go, and we have just covered so how the incontinence is relates to the to fitness, right? So we will go towards the another topic is how what is our focus to support our ladies with incontinence to become stronger and be able to do things they love but not be fear about it.
Yeah, I guess the most important thing is education.
Yes.
And I think, first up, unfortunately in the fitness industry, and this is how I ended up certifying pregnancy and postnatal, that I started in fitness at age 17, like what you mentioned, and then by the time I went to have children myself, there was a lot of confusion about what I could and couldn't do during pregnancy. And then when I finally took myself off to go and train and be mentored by some women's health physios, I discovered I'd learnt about every single muscle in the body as a fitness professional, and I've been in the industry for over 10 years. And I was just mind blown that the pelvic floor was such a major muscle group, and it's connected to everything. So it's not just this tiny muscle inside you that you just sort of do Kegels and then that's it, it's done. It's a sling of muscle that runs from the pubic bone to the tailbone, and it's connected to your hips, it's connected to your glutes, it's connected to your diaphragm. It takes part and collaborates with the rest of your body. So it's just crazy that, you know, particularly as fitness professionals, it's changing, but there's still not much information out there unless you decide to specialize in, you know, pregnancy, postnatal, pelvic floor, which is insane because 80% of women will have a baby in their life. You know, 46% of Australian women are not exercising because they're embarrassed due to pelvic floor issues. And, you know, it's really, really common. And I think it's just like, you know, as I think I've said to you before, Ange, it's like if you had a sprained ankle, you wouldn't just tell someone to keep running on a sprained ankle. You'd learn about it, you'd rehab it, you'd find modifications for it so they can still keep moving. And I think that's the most important thing with the pelvic floor as well. It's a muscle. It needs movement. So just because you have issues or you're having leaking doesn't mean you need to not move. And it also doesn't mean you just need to default to 1,000 Kegels to fix it. It needs to sort of be looked at holistically and how, it collaborates with the whole of your body and what might be triggering it when you do stuff. It could just be the way you're lifting the washing basket. It could be the way you're holding your breath when you lift weights. So that whole body assessment needs to happen. And sadly, I think a lot of women, because they are embarrassed, just go out and try to DIY a solution. So they get on Amazon and they buy a Kegel contraction, or they jump in a Facebook community and ask what has worked for you. Whereas, you know, what is working for someone else may not work for you because your body is completely different. So I think that education is really, really important.
Yeah. And I wanted to add another thing is why it's so, the incontinence is so with the pelvic floor, because pelvic floor sits like this and all our, you know, like a urethra, anus and all comes through the pelvic floor, isn't it? That's why it's so important. Yes.
It holds up all our organs. So it's like when you talk about when you're building a house, you know, to have a really good house and architectural structure, the foundation of the house needs to work and be functional. Otherwise, the rest of the house doesn't work. So that's what your pelvic floor is. It's like the foundation of the house. It's the foundation of the core. So if you're not considering it, it's going to affect everything else. And, you know, there's a lot of women out there who've got very tight jaws. And that is actually connected to the pelvic floor. They've got plantar fasciitis, tension in their feet. That is also connected to tension in the pelvic floor. So I think that education and that awareness, and not just trying to spot train a particular area because it's...
Oh, we lost... Oh, yeah. We lost you for a while.
Just cut out for a minute. So just trying to look at that approach and get assessed properly. And I think for people in the fitness industry, it's really important. I always say, if in doubt, refer out. There's a lot more people out there who are specialists, who can help you and who you can collaborate with. I work with a lot of women's health physios, and telling someone to go and have an assessment, which is where they will do a full internal assessment of your pelvic floor, which is pretty much the only way you can find out, because it's such a deep muscle group, what is going on. And it is going to give you the best roadmap. And then you can go back to a trainer or to someone who's versed in pelvic floor, and they can say, actually, you know what, this kind of movement's going to work better for you because your muscle, your pelvic floor is doing this. So having that roadmap is really, really important. And you can do that at any stage. You can do it during pregnancy, you can do it postnatally, you can do it, you know, when you've had children 20 years ago or before children. It's not just something that happens to women who have had babies. I think that's another thing we need to be aware of as well. A lot of athletes suffer with incontinence.
Yes. So just to unpack what you just said, there were so many points, amazing points, that the most the thing what stood out is not to do DIY at home. try to go to the specific professionals that are out there to support you. Yeah, what's the another one I was going to say, but now it happens to me. I just go blank.
You know, I guess when we talk about DIY, it comes back to the Kegel thing. And I mean, a lot of, you know, the old school way was, okay, to assess your pelvic floor, you need to stop the flow of urine, or something like that, which a lot of midwives say, to strengthen your pelvic floor. But I think you need to be aware that a strong pelvic floor or a too tight pelvic floor can be an exhausted pelvic floor, and that has the name hypertonic pelvic floor, where, you know, it's like if you constantly just do bicep curls all day, that muscle is going to get exhausted. So when you do go and pick something up or do a movement, you're going to leak, basically, because it's so tired. It can't support you. So that's where, you know, it's not necessarily that Kegels are bad. It's often that they're cued incorrectly, or people are just defaulting to do too many of them and not looking at zooming out and looking at the bigger picture, like what we said. And as well, for fitness professionals, I think it's really important. You don't sort of say to someone, okay, to assess your pelvic floor, I want you to do some skipping, or I want you to do a box jump. Do you leak? Like, no, that's not the way. That's just going to probably make someone's symptoms worse and cause a lot of fear, which happens to a lot of people around pelvic floor. And where there's fear, there's also tension. And that comes back to a too tight pelvic floor is not a functional pelvic floor. So it also goes hand in hand, which you've got to make sure.
Ah, yes. So it's tight is not always right.
That's a great way to put it.
It should be able to be function when we, for example, when we sneezing, for it has to be involuntarily work. It has to be, you know, not as tight, not always tight. Otherwise, it's too tired to work at that time when it needs to, right?
Yeah, like any muscle, it needs to contract and it needs to release. So sometimes, you know, too much focus on having a tight, strong muscle, but you know, any muscle in our body is not going to work optimally if it's too tight. It needs to be able to release as well. So then it can contract the best way possible when needed, whether that be lifting, whether that be running, whether that be chasing after a toddler, you know. There's lots of different sports out there.
Oh yeah, we don't have to do sports some days, you know, like our kids keeps us busy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So I'm just curious about you. How would you do it? You know, when like with the lots of fitness trainers, when we do these squats, when we, you know, like squat and stand up and squeeze your glutes and you squeeze your core and like that, we say that. So what is your idea on that?
I guess it's really bizarre. Like, I think the core is the most over-cued muscle in the fitness industry. Like, we don't turn around before you're about to run and say, activate your calf. Like what, we don't need to activate a muscle before we use it. We don't need to tighten it before we use it. It will do that on its own when you move. So over-activating causes long-term issues. And particularly for women, we've been told to draw belly back to spine. We're told to tuck our tailbone, to grip our glutes. And I did dance for a very long time. So I've done all that. I've also cued that. So I'm not immune to, but again, what happens is it's over-cueing. And I guess the best way to think about it is your core is like a canister. Or if you think about it like a can of soda or a can of Coke, And if you shake up a can of Coke, you need to let the air out the top, because if it's too tight and too tense, you're going to put pressure on that midline of the core or on the foundation of your core, which is your pelvic floor, and that pressure creates strain in that muscle. So the best way to help your core activate, for lack of a better word, is to actually breathe. So when you're exhaling on the effort, your core and your pelvic floor naturally lifts because you're letting that air out, and supports all those organs we were talking about. It is not going to be able to support you, and it's really hard to breathe if you're sucking your belly in, so you don't get that deeper core activation. I guess another way I like to say is, when you look at an apple, a whole apple, you can't see inside, you can't see the core of a whole apple. And that's the core we're talking about. We're not just talking about the abs, the six pack. It's the inside, it's the whole of it.
Thank you for, you know, like owning taking the responsibility of like the traditional, you know, trainers, you know, what we've been doing, like engage your core, glutes and tight. And I did the same. And then later on, I realized, when is the thing when we're doing work around house, like lifting baskets, when do we do the squeezing glutes and, you know, when do we do that? It's not functional. It just so why are we saying that and doing that? So, you know, and I just recently realized that, and just being able to, for women to be able to function at home, you know, in a natural way, not it just so. And I was doing that, you know, and then I start aggravating my back, the all around the hip, because when I was doing teaching training, I was doing it myself, you know, without noticing. And now, you know, so so always doing the tight and doing always, it's that's the, thank you for sharing that. So it helps the not only the general people, but towards our coming up new generation of trainers, you know. So
absolutely. I guess, as you say, Ange, when we function in daily life, we don't suddenly go, oh, I'm going to lift up the grocery bag, I better draw my belly button to spine. Like, no one's doing that. Well, hopefully not in real life. Or if they are doing it, that's often where issues and incontinence shows up. They go to pick something up and they're like, oh, I think I just leaked. Oh, how embarrassing. And it's nothing to be embarrassed about. It's about sort of retraining and reconnecting to that muscle group. And I think another thing that's really important to mention is the brain-body connection. It's a really deep muscle group, and I think it's given a lot of attention, or you try to over-activate it because we can't actually see it, and so we want to feel it. But at the same time, for a lot of women who have had a baby, the brain, there's so many recent studies just in the last decade about neuroplasticity and how your brain connects to your body. And unfortunately, when you've had a baby, you know, it's like a little speed bump in your belly. So it's really hard for your brain to reconnect to this deep muscle group. And it takes a while for those neural pathways to reconnect to that deep muscle group, because people panic. Oh, I can't feel anything down there, or it's not working. I better squeeze tighter so I can feel it. And it also comes back to the old cues, you know, if it's not burning, it's not working. If it's not, which we don't.
Pain, no gain.
No pain, no gain. And we don't need to be in pain to get a result or to be functional.
So I have another great question that how would you know that your coach that you go to is well informed in this area? So it would be the best support for you.
I think what's really important, I think all coaches need to be screening their clients, particularly women, no matter what age they are, from, you know, pre-pubescent to pregnancy to postnatal to perimenopause, because there's a myriad of changes. Like, women pretty much wake up with a different body every day, and a lot of it's hormonal, and those hormonal changes can affect the pelvic floor and your muscles. So I think a red flag is if you are not, doing a questionnaire to ask your clients about some information. Do you have any leaking? Have you had any pain, back pain, hip pain? Do you have heaviness when you're running? All of that, because a lot of the time I find some clients, they're not going to tell you that in person. It's a lot easier to write it on a piece of paper if they're embarrassed. And if you see some of those things that, or they may not want to talk about it, but it's just going to make sure that you are not going to make those symptoms worse, and at least you've asked the question. And again, if you're not sure, refer out. But I just think it's just so important to get that knowledge. Like, if you're not sure about it, there's plenty of courses now that you can go out and learn about pregnancy, postnatal, pelvic floor, perimenopause. And it doesn't necessarily mean you just have to train that niche. You're going to come across probably, a lot of, 1 out of 3 clients are going to need it, which is just so important. And I think, for women out there who are either in group fitness classes or training with coaches, if you're told to push through, if you're told to go harder, if you're told, okay, just ignore that, that happens to everyone, that's just a part of motherhood, or that's just because you've had a baby. No, that's a red flag. There's plenty of other options. Like what we said, you don't have to do box jumps, you don't have to do skipping. You can still do a lot of alternatives. And if you're not being offered those alternatives in a class or by your trainer, or looking at, okay, I'm getting lower back pain when I squat, or maybe I'm holding my breath, if they're not sort of bringing in or looking at it holistically, you probably, might need to go and, it's a red flag. And don't be afraid to speak up and say, I need an alternative. And if they can't offer that to you, look elsewhere.
So advocating for yourself is another big thing, isn't it? Speak up for yourself, because lots of times in a group class, the coach might not even notice that you're struggling or you have, some sort of discomfort, because when you're one-on-one, you can see straight right away. But when you're in a group, so you just have to speak out if you're struggling, or just ask for it straight right away, I need a modification. Oh, yes.
And never think that a modification is cheating or you're not doing enough. If a modification is going to allow you to get up and exercise again tomorrow and to do it more consistently, that's what you want.
Yes.
Like, again, we don't want to just go hard and never come back, because that's just, what's the point of that?
Yeah. Thank you, Julie, for coming here. Julia, she says, thank you for the info. I have to go now, and we'll watch a replay later on. Thank you, Julia, for coming. You have a great day. So we, as much as we would love to keep talking about this amazing topic, Dallas, then I think we have to now ask for if you have any questions, please, comment down below. And while we're doing that, please, Dallas, tell us where we can find you, and if any new courses coming, or or what you're doing, what exciting things you're doing.
Sure. Well, I'm always on Instagram. I answer all my own messages, so you're more than welcome to send me a DM and ask some questions. And no question is a bad question. Please, don't be shy. You can find my website as well, which is bodyfabulous.com.au. And I'm also running, starting next week, my Fab 5 challenge. So this is actually teaching you that you don't have to default to Kegels and crunches. You can connect to your core through whole body movement, and you can actually do it from as little as 5 minutes a day. So I think that's another thing for a lot of women. There are solutions which you can roll out of bed and do stuff in your pajamas, which are going to give you really, really great results, which comes back to learning how it's all connected in your whole body, and then transferring that to how you go about your day. So as we said, when you're lifting the groceries, and when you're putting stuff in the car, or you're twisting in the car, it comes back to, okay, that brain-body connection, and becoming more aware and learning possibly where those blind spots are that might be triggering this, or potentially, you want to prevent it if that's sort of not optimal.
Oh, that sounds amazing. it's not the long classes or anything like that. It's 5 minutes, and please, sign up for it. Self-care. I think us mothers need so much that at least 5 minutes a day for yourself. And, if that is going to help us with not only strengthening, but we have done something for ourselves, and mentally it makes us feel good as well, right? So,
Yeah,
that is amazing.
yeah.
Thank you. So I think now we will have to end our beautiful conversation. Dallas, thank you so much for coming here today and talking on this important topic. Yes, thank you so much. And and hopefully, like you will get lots of people in your program, and so women will decide to look after themselves, and that's amazing. Congratulations.
Thanks, Ange, and thank you for bringing this topic, more awareness to this topic and having these conversations, because I think it's really important. And I think it's hard to navigate. There is a lot of information out there, and there is a lot of people on the flip side as well. If women are having issues, saying, "Oh, being prescribed specific exercises, like don't do this or you shouldn't do this." Like I had one client who was told, "Oh, you will never squat again," because she'd had a prolapse. And she was told that by a surgeon. And I had to say to her, "Well, do you go to the bathroom? Do you sit on a toilet?" And she's like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Well, that's a squat." So I think there's a big difference between, there's a squat in fitness, which some people think is going to have to be really heavily weighted and dropping your butt to the floor, compared to squatting, which we do every day in life. So there's a lot of women out there with a lot of fear who think they can't be doing stuff. So I think it's finding that balance as well, and particularly as fitness professionals, giving them a sounding board and listening to them and removing that barrier is really, really important.
Yes, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, right?
Absolutely.
Doing this live to bring awareness and educate
us,
ourselves, as well as other people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you, Dallas, for coming here today. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I'll put all the links, Dallas's information in the content, so you can find, all her details. Thank you so much, everyone, for coming here today. And for now, bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Dallas. See ya. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.